My name is Royce Adams. I'm a retired English teacher. I've taught elementary children, I've taught adults, and the last 25 years of my teaching was with Santa Barbara City College, and I taught various subjects of English literature, composition, reading, and I took early retirement. I am now 93 years old and learning to give up on a lot of things that I used to be. I was very active. I used to swim a lot, I used to jog a lot, I used to ski, I used to scuba dive, and now I'm having to give up many of those things because of my age. But I'm healthy and I've had a good life. Kate's been a major factor in my life because she's the one who actually got me started writing fiction. I've written many textbooks on reading and writing and study skills. So she was my first attempt at writing fiction. But I never intended for the books to be published. It was really a project between Kate and myself. And we traveled a lot when she was young. And we were in Spain and France and various countries, and she was alone and had no friends many of those times, so she would ask me to tell her a story. And I said, okay, let's make up a land. And she made up the country Rairarubia, and that was based on the fact that she wanted a country that was rare. She wanted a country that had good air, and she wanted a country that had lots of rubies. So she came up with the name Rairarubia. And I said, that's fine, now who are the characters? So the first character she made up was a young girl, her age, or maybe a little bit older, she said, named Molly. And Molly was going to be a major character in the story, but she also decided that she wanted to have a character named Romy. And so I said, well, how is this all going to work? And she said, well, you help me make up the story and I'll name places and tell you what they should do. So I said, okay, describe the land. So she began describing the land. I won't go into detail. You can read the book if you're interested. But anyway, she made up this character called Romy, who was the main character in the story. Then, as we went along, she made up some really interesting things. This young girl, who was a little bit older than Kate, actually became a character in a fantasy land that she and I made up. But when she asked me to write the story, I had to change it a little bit because it was really taking place the way the story began. She and I making up the story. So in order for me to get into the story, I decided that we would have a young lady named Molly that she wanted in the story, and that she and her father would together make up the story. So as we moved along, there became numerous characters. Molly has a best friend, Nettie. Romy is the main character in the fictionalized story. And Romy meets a young man named Sam, and neither one really know where they came from or how they came about, but they wind up being treated very special. And in so doing, the story begins, and we have lots of adventures with them meeting strange characters like Genoax and Quevix and various other story characters. But the real touch of it begins when Molly begins to realize that she can get into the fantasy story that she and her father are making up. And as the stories progress, she drags her friend Nettie into the story with her. And what happens is they just get into some of the wildest schemes you can think of. They always manage somehow to find their way out. I think one of the major scenes in the story is when Romy gets actually picked up by a giant bird and dropped into the bird's nest because the bird plans on eating Romy and feeding it to her chicks when the chicks are hatched. So at that point, we begin to see the ingenuity of Romy and how she manages to get out of that predicament that she's in. And in fact, as the story progresses, there are many scenes like that where Romy has to figure out how to get out of the big trouble that she's in. But a school teacher of mine, had read part of Rairarubia, and Kate, of course, was very excited about it. So I self-published the first book, and so that Kate could actually see the results of our labor. But this teacher friend of mine said, well, I think my children in the 6th grade would really enjoy your coming to the class and talking to them about it. And that triggered a thought on my mind that, well, maybe there is something here that other people could enjoy besides my daughter and myself. So I began to fool around with it and make it a little bit more publishable than before. And all of a sudden I was being asked to go to book fairs, come to classes in school and read to them. And I realized that their reading knowledge wasn't always commiserate with their level. I tried as best I could to write in a way that would still not sound like I'm writing down to them, but reading in a voice that they could understand. What I aim to do with the book is to help kids who couldn't read very well become interested in reading per se, because a lot of children are never read to. And I was hoping that the book, by showing parent reading to a child what could be accomplished, I knew that students who don't read very well can't have their attention held too long, so I wanted the books to be not very long. As I found too many kids, especially young ones, will start reading and then they drop their interest. So I was hoping that the fantasy area, along with the reality area, would be something that students could connect to. It took a year for me and Kate to finish the 6 books. And after that, it turned out that we started going to places like the Los Angeles Book Fair. We'd set up a booth. We had a big Rairarubia band over our booth. And she came down, and when people bought the books, I would have her autograph them as well as myself. So this became a fun project for the two of us. So it was a nice father-daughter relationship anyway. But I think it was mostly the inspiration of characters that Kate came up with, not so much me. I mean, she was a good reader herself, had no problems with getting her to read. And she still, to this day, reads voraciously. And she, I think, probably came up with more characters that were meaningful to her, or that she saw in her mind, than for me, because I just sort of took the reins of following her lead. But I do think the mother and father relationship, to me, is an important one, because I just find that so many parents do not read to their kids. And that's part of the reason they don't do well in school or have to take remedial reading classes. And I think one of the benefits of reading to young people is it teaches them a lot about life. Because as much as fiction is fiction, most fiction is based on the reality of what exists. Well, the land of Rairarubia becomes very visual because it's got castles in it and horses and the sort of stuff that you'd find in books about knights. And both Sam and Molly have to go through a series of training. One, first of all, as I think I mentioned, about nature itself and living with nature and understanding nature. And the other one is being able to fight against evil. And in this case, they also learn arms beyond karate. And they also are physically trained to do activities that normally people would really need to survive in the wildness. Because they do run across some very strange creatures in the book. Well, first of all, I hope the book is enjoyable and entertaining. I mean, I hope there's enough in the book that people want to continue reading and find fun in it. And I hope that their imaginations are triggered into realizing that they too can make up fantasy stories and have fun with it.